the basis of any principle. He joined it because he wanted to extract as many ministries and favors as he possibly could. The fact that he's pulled out now means that somebody's promised him something bigger and better, or rather because he wants to extract something bigger and better from this very government. I wouldn't be too surprised if the JUI-F was back in the government in a short while.
All right. Now, Mosharraf, talk to us about how the RGST is also going to get affected by this. The PPP needs all the votes it can get at this point when it does come up for voting the RGST. The JUI-F has now gone. The PMLN has voiced their opinion that they're certainly against it. They will not be voting. Now, how can the PPP now maybe try and win back some people, not just for the RGST, but also for other matters, for their coalition, to get the numbers for any important things?
Well, I think what what needs to happen with the PPP government at the federal level is that it needs to govern in accordance with principles and with ideas rather than with quick fix convenience. And so one of the ways in which it can convince the MQM, which has 25 seats and could be a very important part of the equation in the Assembly, one of the ways to convince them to vote with the PPP on the RGST is to impose an agricultural tax as well, which the PPP isn't willing to do. There are other measures that the PMLN has asked the government to undertake, which the PPP isn't willing to do. And clearly the PPP isn't willing to be held at ransom by Maulana Fazlur Rahman and his sort of politics for ransom. So at some point, something has to give, and the PPP will have to make a compromise if it wants to pass the RGST. But it won't be for free. It'll have to give up on something important.
All right. Now, we might be jumping the gun here, Mosharraf, but is there a chance for maybe Nawaz Sharif to form a government? Because it seems the PPP is being deserted from all sides. We know the JUI-F has said that they're not going to be their partners. The PMLN, we already know, not working with the PPP. The MQM, it seems, are also running the other way because Zulfikar Mirza's comments we heard yesterday in Karachi. So what seems to be happening? What do you foresee in the coming months?
Well, I think one group that we shouldn't ignore, the third largest political party in the National Assembly, is actually the PMLQ, and they might prove to be a bit of a wild card. Although I think the idea that any party is going to buck public opinion, which is strongly against yet another regressive tax in this country, is unrealistic. And this is the problem with sort of the echo chamber of governance in Pakistan, is that soon after taking power, I think Pakistan's leaders forget what it's like to be an ordinary Pakistani, and certainly I don't think that anyone who has any connection with reality would think the RGST or any kind of regressive tax of a similar nature would ever have any kind of popularity. So I think this really begs questions about public policy and where public policy comes from. The RGST, of course, isn't the PPP's idea. It's largely being imposed by Pakistan's creditors. There are other ways to reduce the deficit than borrowing money. And I think if the PPP government had shown any kind of willingness to reduce expenditures substantially, then perhaps it wouldn't be facing this situation.
And do you think the PPP is not thinking things through? Because a simple thing like talking to the JUI-F before announcing such a decision could have averted this disaster, if you want to call it that, that the JUI-F has now left the coalition with the PPP. Is it that the PPP is not thinking through what they want to do? What seems to be the problem with that party?
I think that, like I said, part of it is just just the burden of being in power, and I think part of it is also that when you're on a downward trajectory, no matter what you do, it backfires. If you look at this decision in the absence of the whole debate over the RGST and the constant sort of beaming of Maulana Fazlur Rahman's face on television, really what you see is the PPP trying to do something good, which is to hold its ministers to account. This Minister Swati and Minister Kazmi had made a real sort of mess of things and were constantly bickering in the public and blaming each other for being corrupt. This was an embarrassment for Pakistan, both at home and abroad with Saudi Arabia. And so I think the Prime Minister, was rightly trying to correct the course here. But of course, like I said, when the trajectory is downwards, even the good things that you try to do go against you, and this is one of those cases.
So it was a good decision, you think, but it was maybe they went about it in not such a good way. They might have, should have rather spoken to the JUI-F. Let's talk about the PPP once again, though. How can they win back more coalition support now? It seems that whatever, as you mentioned as well, whatever they try and do backfires. Whoever's their partner in the coalition seems to be going away for one reason or another. What's the future for the PPP now?
Well, luckily the PPP continues to have the confidence of the United States and other powers, and I'm sure that most countries, whether regional powers or further away, would be interested in its continued stability in Pakistan, which means that they'd like to see the PPP continue to remain in power. There's really very little chance of a military intervention